Hi, everybody. My name is Michaela Beyer, and today I'm going to be interviewing John Bazz. John Bazz is best known as the bass player of the Blasters. They are a rockabilly roots rock group who gained fame in California in the 1980s and are still going to this day. And he's also had several side projects, including with Marc Ford from the Black Crowes, and also a event with Bruce Willis. And since this is Memorial Day, we're going to talk about how he performed for our troops with Bruce Willis as well. Thank you so much for coming on, John.
Glad to be here.
Good. Alrighty, so let's start from the very beginning. Where were you born and raised?
I was born, God, where was I born? In Los Angeles, but as an infant moved to Downey, and I was born in 1952, and I was probably as soon as I grew up, I didn't leave Downey until 1970, and then moved to Long Beach, and I've been here ever since.
Nice. And let's go back to kind of your early childhood in Downey. Were you in a musical family? I mean, did your parents really play a lot of music when you were growing up?
Yeah, my parents loved music, and it was around me my whole life. My dad, when he was younger, played drums, and then his brother, my uncle, played trumpet, and it was a pretty great time for music anyway. What was on the radio, the records my parents bought, they liked they loved big band jazz and Frank Sinatra and that sort of thing. So I got a lot of that growing up.
Excellent. And did you ever get a chance to see any of those people live in concert?
I did see Frank Sinatra, but that was much later in life, near the end of his career. And as a kid, I went to go see Count Basie. His big band came to Downey, so that was fun to go see him play.
Excellent. Now, when you were growing up in Downey, apparently you met three very important people. Tell me about the time that you met Bill Bateman and the Alvin brothers.
So before any of us were born, my parents lived right across the street from the Alvins, and the mothers became very good friends. And then my parents moved to LA. I was born, and then we moved back to Downey, and the moms stayed in touch. And so they would get together every now and then. So Mrs. Alvin would, when she would come to my house, or when my mom went to go visit Mrs. Alvin, she'd have me in tow, and the kids would get together. We'd play a little bit. We weren't really friends. The moms were friends, but it wasn't until I want to say junior high school that I became good friends with Phil Alvin. And then his younger brother, David, was, I got to know him through knowing Phil. Bill Bateman was, I knew of Bill Bateman, but wasn't really a friend of Bill's until I started playing music. Bill's a great drummer. And so he was just part of that pack of musicians that roamed Downey. And so every musician knew every other musician. There weren't very many of us. And we were all the same age. We all liked the same music. It was basically blues oriented music. So God, there are probably as few as a dozen of us that would get together and make music together. And we all had bands, or if we didn't have bands, we would get together and we would have jam sessions. There weren't many gigs back then, so we would play anywhere and everywhere we could if someone wanted a band.
Nice. And what really, I mean, it sounds like it happened organically, but was there a moment when you really realized that the four of you gelled quite well, like as a unit, and that you wanted to take it to another level?
Yeah, it was. I think we'd all basically given up on music because it was like the mid '70s, and there wasn't very much of a live scene. Everything was disco was really big then, and live bands were dead unless they were big, arena bands. But the local scene was pretty stale at the time. But when punk rock came to be, like in 76, 77, 78, there was this resurgence. There was in live music, people became interested. People started going out, including myself. We weren't playing back then, but it was becoming vibrant again. And we decided to give it a go. We would rehearse in Bill Bateman's living room, and we just learned a bunch of songs that we liked, and we knew we were good. We didn't know how good we were. We weren't great, but we were good enough to maybe go out in public and play. So we would do like talent shows and things like that. And people paid attention to what we were doing. And it really, we didn't do much to promote ourselves. We just played as much as we could, and people loved the music we played. It wasn't real typical. It wasn't rockabilly per se. It was a lot of things. It was a mix of different American musics. It was mostly blues rock, a little rockabilly. It was pretty eclectic. So, and this was 1979, and the music scene back then was very open-minded. So you'd have like Ray Campy opening for the Clash, which was really, man, that didn't seem right, but it was. And so we really knew we had a chance to make a mark on the scene.
Excellent. And it sounds like you were kind of in your late 20s by then. Had you already graduated high school and college?
Oh yeah, we were all, the Alvin brothers were still in college. I had taken on a full-time job, and Bill Bateman had taken on a job as well. So we would just get together after school or after work and rehearse. And in the beginning, we kept the Alvins state. I think David maybe had graduated by then. Phil was still in school going for a degree, and we would go out at night and play. I think in 1980, we played like 250 local gigs that year. It was amazing. And so by the end of that year, Phil had quit school, I'd quit my job, and Bill Bateman had quit his job. And it was pretty obvious that the Blasters were going to continue and maybe hopefully get bigger and start touring.
Excellent. And you did just that. Tell me about when you landed a record deal and were able to record your first album.
The record deal was kind of funny. We weren't really playing much at the time, and there was an article, I think it was in the LA Weekly, and they were talking about rockabilly, and they mentioned Rockin' Ronnie Weiser from Rolling Rock Records. Mm-hmm. And he was in Van Nuys, and he had a rockabilly label with Rip Masters and Ray Campy and Johnny Legend and a few other artists. And we called Rockin' Ronnie and we said, we're as good as anybody on your label. I think you need to listen to a tape that we made. And we drove over, dropped it off, and he liked it. And we made a record a few months later in his garage. And that was 1979.
Excellent. And what was that like for you? I mean, was it exciting knowing that doing this thing you loved was translating onto something that was going to last forever, an album?
I don't know if I really knew how important that recording was going to end up being. We were excited to have the opportunity to have our music recorded. And Rockin' Ronnie Weiser was he was super happy to have us as his new artist on his label. And even though it was a small garage label out of Van Nuys, it had worldwide impact. And if you were a collector, or if you liked that genre of music, you knew of Rockin' Ronnie Weiser. So we were really enamored to be on Rolling Rock Records. It was a good fit for us.
Excellent. It sounded like you had a good attitude about it, and you were truly honored to be a recording musician.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And one artist that I wanted to ask you about, I know that you toured with them and got to know them a little bit. The Cramps. What was it like to work alongside them?
They were really nice people. They were. We didn't do many shows. We probably did like a half a dozen shows with the Cramps. Mm-hmm. In 80, 81, 82. They were one of my favorite bands before the Blasters ever started. I would go see the Cramps anytime I could. They didn't come to Los Angeles much, so I was I love, there were a few bands that I really liked before the Blasters started. I would go out and see X and, oh gosh, the Weirdos and the Cramps and bands like that. So I knew of them when we started performing with them. It was an honor. They I think the first gig we did with them was at the Cuckoo's Nest in Costa Mesa, and I'm not sure they knew who we were, but it was a compatible bill. But from that point on, we became friends at that gig, and the Lux and Ivy really loved the Alvin brothers, and they loved what the Alvins knew about music. And the Cramps had an understanding of a specific kind of music, which was really closely related to what the Alvins, the blues music that the Blasters were emulating. So so the two bands gelled. We were really close musically. The presentation was a lot different because you know how the Cramps are. It's there's a lot of showbiz in that performance. But the Blasters are really true to form with how we would present the music. The Cramps took it up a notch or two, for sure.
Yeah. And also, one prominent band that whose members you would work with later on was X, and John Doe has actually been very praising of you and has called you one of the best bass players out there.
Well, thank you, John Doe.
Yeah. So what was it like working with them? I mean, eventually, Exene Cervenka appeared on one of your albums.
She did. I want to get back to John Doe's statement, because John Doe is one of my favorite bass players too. I continue to go to X shows, and I'm just amazed at how well he plays bass and how melodic it is. And he does one thing that other bass players do this too, but how the hell can he play bass like a wild man and sing at the same time? It's like a magic trick.
Yeah. Yeah, it requires a lot of skill.
The Blasters did a record, I think it was in 2012 on Ripcat Records, and Phil and Exene sang a duet together on that record.
Cool.
CD.
Alrighty. Awesome. Alrighty, so back to your second album, The Blasters. I mean, what was it like knowing that your first album had been so successful, and did it feel like an honor to get the opportunity to record again?
Yeah, and this time it was with Slash Records, and it was a step up from Rolling Rock Records. And by that time, enough time had passed, and we had become quite accomplished in the interim. So it was a natural progression to go into the studio with Slash Records and make that second record.
Excellent.
And we did re-record some of the songs that were on the first Rolling Rock record, and that was, and so and by doing so, the two songs I'm thinking about, American Music and Marie Marie, didn't have much of an audience on Rolling Rock Records. As great as that label was, it didn't have as much prominence as Slash Records ended up having. So that was a really big step forward for the band and David as a songwriter, and those two songs especially. And I think that really helped to launch our career internationally.
Excellent. And did you feel yourself improving as well in your bass playing?
No, not really. Things happened so quickly. I wasn't really a bass player when the band started, but I would, and the Blasters only ever played cover songs off of that we learned from records in Bill Bateman's front room. So I would just literally memorize what I was doing. I didn't know what I was doing, but it was memorized and it was performed well, but I didn't know the theory behind the notes I was playing. It wasn't until later, it wasn't until I started playing outside of the Blasters with other musicians that I started to hone my craft.
Okay, who were some people who really helped you in that learning process?
Me.
Okay.
No, I just got real serious about the music, because when you're playing something that's, like I said, memorized, and you play it the same way every night, and maybe you learn you learn at rehearsal what it is you want to play, but then it doesn't change for the next 40 years. So that's a different skill set than actually going out, showing up at a venue with other artists and having to play along with people that you don't necessarily know, songs that you don't necessarily know. The what I'm really good at is blues music. It's pretty simple and they're set rules, and I know all those rules. So I can play blues with anybody on the planet right now and feel comfortable and not make a mistake and play well. So, but I didn't know that at first. Even though I was playing blues music, it was all memorized. I didn't know what I was doing. It was I know music, but I didn't necessarily know the notes I was playing, but I knew the geometry of how the strings and the frets fit and where I was supposed to put my fingers. And I don't know, it eventually came about to me over time.
Okay, great. So you were kind of an autodidactic musician.
Yeah, I think so.
Awesome. Alrighty, and there's one cultural event that I wanted to ask you about in music. Forgive me if this is a bit of a downturn, but the year that your first record came out, music lost one of its great talents, John Lennon. Do you remember how you heard that he was gone, and were you a fan of the Beatles?
I love the Beatles, but I can't recall when I heard the news about John Lennon's death. It was unfortunate what happened, but honestly, I can't tell you where I was when I heard the news. When was his death, by the way? What year?
December 8th, 1980.
Yeah. Yeah, I was probably touring or something. It was probably a blur.
Okay. Well, on a better note, you eventually recorded your third album, Nonfiction. What was that like?
Again, it was the same process. A big Hollywood studio and producers, engineers, and the one thing, going back to Rolling Rock, we did that in 2 days. When we started making records for Slash and Warner Brothers, we had bigger budgets and we could take our time. So we would spend like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks in the studio, and you could really get a song perfect. You could actually work on a song too much and make it go past perfect and start regressing. It's a funny thing happens when you're in the studio and listening to the same thing over and over and over again. You start to lose track of where you're at, and you sometimes lose track of what's good. And maybe good was a half hour ago, maybe 2 hours ago. You don't know that. You can constantly improve or think you're improving. It's a little bit of a I don't know, hard to say. You get too wrapped up in something and you have to stand back and take a look at it from afar, I think. And, we were spending, hours on end in the studio making these records. And, it was wonderful because of the quality of the studio, and our playing had gotten better. David's songwriting had matured, and instead of doing all covers, we were doing the majority of the songs were written by Dave.
And what was it like being in that environment? Because I mean, you were very devoted to blues and roots music, but this was a time when hair metal was becoming very popular, and that had quite a different energy and vibe to your music.
It did. That was off my radar. I knew about other bands, but we were so locked into our genre and what we were doing that everything else we had our blinders on, not intentionally, but we didn't. In fact, I remember Bill and we were in the studio and we're going, hey man, let's go see a heavy metal band tonight. So, we're in Hollywood. I forget where we went, maybe the Troubadour or somewhere. And I forget the band that we saw, but it was a hair band and it was interesting, but we were outcasts when our hair was slicked back. So we stood in the back. We just watched from afar, and it was interesting. I remember being disappointed though, that it wasn't, I was hoping it would be more over the top than it ended up being. It was pretty
Really?
tame compared to what I was imagining it would be like.
When Guns N' Roses came along, were they kind of more what you had in mind?
I don't know Guns N' Roses. I really don't.
Okay.
Sorry. I mean, I know who they are, but I don't know.
Okay.
I couldn't I couldn't pick them out of a lineup, I don't think.
Really?
Sorry.
No,
Well, I probably
don't be
could. I
sorry.
could
That's
guess,
actually
but
kind
I
of cool.
don't. I'm serious. I don't know that genre.
All right, fair enough. Alrighty, so we're to your fourth album, Hardline. Tell me a little bit about that.
Um, like the previous records that we made, it was a kind of a, I don't, when I say high budget, everything's relative. We didn't have a lot of money, but it was more money than we had ever had in the past um, to make a record. The the main takeaway is that we would, when we were ready to make a record and we would go in and record, we had we had so much experience at this point that it was it was, I don't want to say it was more work like than fun. It was, but
Mhm.
it was, we were all used to the process at this point. And I think we were, at least I was a better musician. We were, Gene Taylor was amazing from the start. Lee Allen was not going to get any better because he was as good as he could get. But we would, the process became quicker for us to record tunes. We were better prepared when we would make recordings
Nice.
at that point.
You know, one of my favorite songs that you've done is actually on that album, Help You Dream. Do you remember recording that?
I do. I
Nice.
don't remember the specifics of recording it, but I know the song very well. And it was um it I think, boy, it I think it went off without a hitch recording it. There were times when we would go to record something and it would absolutely fall apart and explode. And we'd change it, we'd do this and that and the other, and then it would end up being coming out of the machine different than what went into the machine. But Help You Dream, I think, was pretty um there was no drama in that recording. It was pretty much business as usual.
Nice. Now, do you have any songs from that part of your catalog that are very dear to you and that have remained favorites over time?
Um, I don't, yeah, all of them really. They're all my favorites. So the of course, Marie Marie and American Music, they mean a lot to me and the band, and they were because they're such great songs and they were so important. But there are other ones too, like um, some of the songs that maybe didn't make it onto record, like Kathleen, or other songs that did but never got performed much, like Jubilee Train.
Mhm.
Um, they're all great tunes. They're all very deserving in one way or another.
Yeah, they are. And of course, Dark Knight later on became famous when it was used in a Robert Rodriguez film.
Yes, a good song as well. When the Blasters play, it's the thought sometimes crosses my mind that we have more songs, more good songs that then can be performed in a single performance. There's a gigantic catalog of great material that we've recorded, and there's not enough time to play them all. So it's a little disappointing sometimes to have to cut songs out. Great songs don't get to be performed or heard, only because if we played every great Blaster tune, um, it would end up being like a 3 hour show, which is, would kill us because we can't do that.
Well, that actually kind of brings me to another question. Like, how much say did you yourself have in what songs were going to go on your albums or what songs you were going to perform on tour?
When Dave Alvin was in the band, he made most of those decisions. And when we would play a gig, we'd be on tour. Dave would normally make the set list, and it was it was never the same set twice. And I remember thinking to myself, God, when I go see this band or that band, it seems like they always do the same thing, always. But Dave made a point to, he would sit there before the show after sound check, and he'd handwrite a set list. And it was really about the mood, his mood, the mood of the audience, how things went the night before, and what he thought could be improved upon. So that was always interesting. In in the studio, we generally had just enough songs to make a record. So there wasn't really a lot of picking and choosing. We did everything that we had prepared to record, we ended up recording, and maybe then some. There were a few times when we would take a chance and put something on the record, and we'd shake our heads and say, no, maybe this isn't the right time to put it out, or it doesn't sound right. It was a good idea, but no, it's not going to work. And that was, boy, you could count all those songs on the fingers of one hand. Most of everything that we recorded came out and was released. Not very much was shelved or kept in the can, as they say.
Okay. And did you feel throughout the early 1980s that there was genuinely a healthy, productive dynamic between you and the other three members? Like you were a good unit and good friends by then?
Oh, yeah. We were family, almost literally family, because the moms were so close and we had grown up together, and from afar at first, and then junior high school through, what's junior high school? How old are you then? You're like 13, 14. So
Yeah.
maybe I was 16 when I met Phil, and Phil was 15. So for the next 10 years, we just developed our musical taste, and we were great friends. Me, Phil, David, Bill Bateman came along a little later, but we were like a family at that point. We were really close to each other. It was probably different than most other bands, because a lot of bands, you end up joining a band because someone recommended you, or you read an ad in a newspaper. You're right, it was very organic, only because we grew up together and we all loved the same music. Nobody in the Blasters was faking it when it came to performing any of the songs that we played. We loved everything that we played. We did, and still do.
Nice. And you've remained one of the mainstays of the band. I mean, you've literally been a formal member of them since their inception up until now. I mean,
yeah.
And are you really proud of that? I mean, it sounds like you are genuinely committed, and you decided that was your family, come what may.
Maybe proud is the wrong word, but yeah, I am proud of being in the band for that length of time. But I'd have it no other way.
Excellent.
So I guess maybe I'm lucky to still be in the band.
Well,
to some extent.
Well, I think you've earned it by now.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty, and so there's kind of a big gap between your fourth album, Hardline, and then your fifth album, 41144. Can you tell me why there was such a gap?
Because David left the band.
Yep. And what was that like? I mean, did that feel like a huge moment and a huge breakup in your life, or was it something that you felt you guys were
we had done so much in such a short period of time, and it wasn't really a short period of time. By I don't even know when he quit, 87. That was so that would be like 8 years. That's a long time to be in a band with your best friends and do as much as we did. And I could see that David was not changing, but as a songwriter, he was going in a slightly different direction than I think he was. I don't know if the Blasters could do justice to his songs, his new songs, or the direction he wanted to move in. And he also had, when he wrote a song, he wrote it for, at least in the back of his mind, he wrote it for his brother to sing. And when David left the band, David became the singer. So David didn't have those restrictions any longer. So I think it was pretty organic for him to leave the band when he did. So when he did leave the band, without David, we didn't have any new material, and we had such a good catalog that really what we did for like the next decade was just continue with the status quo. And touring, it was never a problem to tour because we had a good reputation. We did go through a series of guitar players at that time, but they were always great guitar players. Like we had Hollywood Fats for a minute. He was great. And Smokey Hormel, he was great. And James Enfield was great. And I don't know who I'm leaving out. Keith Wyatt Keith's the new guy in the band, and he's been in the band for like 30 years. So he's the guy.
Yeah. And I'm kind of curious what your opinion was on the commercial success of the Blasters. I mean, you guys entered the Billboard charts, and I think that you entered within the top 100 at one time. But was there ever frustration among you and the other three that you kind of weren't able to break into the top 10 or anything like that?
Yeah, that's a hard one to answer, only because I don't think any of us got into the business to break into the Billboard top whatever. We played the music we loved, and we were just so enamored that other people liked what we did, and that was the reward. We didn't, but on the other hand, I think the Blasters probably deserve more credit in the history of music for the songs that we created and performed and recorded. They're just really great songs. And yes, we had success. I think we probably should have had more success. I don't know how much more, but God, man, when we headlined the Whiskey A Go-Go, I don't know when that was, like 1981 or something, I thought to myself, boy, it doesn't get any better than this. And of course it does, but really, that was pretty darn good. So that was, the other things are just, the accolades, the trophies and whatever, that's all they are. And I know in my heart, we're a great band. And I think everyone else, my Blaster brothers that I perform with on stage, we know that too. And that's good enough.
Exactly. Courtney Love actually has a quote that I think is quite wonderful. She was talking about how she always wanted to be the Elvis of her generation. She wanted to be one of the most acclaimed and most commercially successful. But at the same time, she put it this way: if I can't take the crown, I want to be a reference point for whoever does. And to me, the Blasters kind of fit into that quote, because you guys are such an important reference point to a lot of musicians that were around you at that time and that have come up since.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I'll take that.
Yeah. And it's something to be proud of.
It is. I am very proud of the Blasters and what we have accomplished.
Excellent. Alrighty, and let's talk about some of your other work besides that. Tell me about how you started performing with Bruce Willis.
Boy, how did that come about? It was that was because of Lester Butler and the Red Devils. Bill Bateman, he didn't exactly leave the Blasters, but we all have side projects that we do. One of Bill's was playing with Lester Butler in the Red Devils with the Bartell brothers and Smokey Hormel, and even Dave Alvin for a minute was in the Red Devils. I think they were, excuse me, called the Blue Shadows back then. But Bruce Willis loved the Red Devils, and he would go to the King on Monday nights along with everyone else in Hollywood to go hear the Red Devils. And Bruce was a harmonica player and a singer, and that's what he wanted to be before he was an actor. But then he was a model, then an actor, then a famous actor. But after becoming famous, he wanted to get back to his roots, which was music. So he was enamored with Lester Butler, especially, and the Red Devils. So Bruce would hire the Red Devils for any occasion at the drop of a hat, and eventually got into there was a business venture. There was a restaurant chain called Planet Hollywood, and Bruce was a co-investor of Planet Hollywood. So part of the deal was they'd have grand openings, which were a really big deal for Planet Hollywood restaurants because it got a lot of press and publicity free. And Bruce's deal was his band would play, and so that was Bruce Willis with the Red Devils. But it got to be kind of weird for some of the members of the Red Devils, and so I guess a couple of the guys quit, and I got the call from Lester to play bass, and Smokey Hormel got the call to play guitar, and Stephen Hodges got the call to play drums. And even though we weren't the Red Devils, we had became Bruce's backup band that played Red Devils songs or something to that effect. And we eventually started working so much with Bruce Willis that we were his band, but it became a thing. So, and that probably lasted 15 years.
We're here on Memorial Day, and I have to ask you, what was it like performing for the troops with Bruce Willis?
Oh man, that was a lot of fun. It was in a really different part of the world, and Bruce wanted to perform for the troops. I think we were overseas for like 2 weeks, and he's got a really great work ethic. So in the morning, we would go to one base and either perform, or maybe the band would sit to the side and Bruce would have breakfast with the guys, and then we'd travel to another base in the afternoon or the evening, and we'd for sure have a concert then. And all we did was travel and play, and it was a really great opportunity to meet all the troops. And we were in 2 different countries. We were in Afghanistan and Iraq, and God, we flew, bused, went by truck, by plane, by helicopter, just to all different parts of those 2 countries. And it was really just to perform at these different bases.
Wow, what an opportunity. I mean, what was it like being in those parts of the world?
It was different. It was very eye-opening. There was not of it was nothing like being in California, that's for sure. And it was a desert, and it was hot as hell, and it was dusty. I remember flying to the border of, oh gosh, Iraq and Iran, and we're in a helicopter, and I'm looking down at the desert, and we're flying over a town, and the town you could barely see the town because the town was made out of the same dirt and mud and sand that was in the desert. So everything had this like terracotta, sandy gray look to it. There was no color. It was just, and it was so remote. And and I remember as we passed over this little town, there were no telephone lines going into the town. I don't know how the people communicated. I really wanted to get off the helicopter and walk around that town just to see how people functioned and what they ate and what the lifestyle was like, because it was so foreign to me. We were in bigger towns. We were in Baghdad for a minute, and that was modern, but it was kind of war torn, and it was just a little bit different. It was maybe dangerous to walk on the streets, so we didn't. Mm-hmm. And then when you would go to a base, and I forget, and we visited every discipline in the military, so we got to meet tons of people.
Nice. Now, I'm a little bit curious, did anybody recognize you from the Blasters, or were they just kind of more focused on Bruce?
No, these were kids. They were all, young soldiers, so
okay, there
was no recognition there.
But what a gift. It sounds like a great adventure.
It was.
And some of your other work is with Marc Ford of the Black Crowes. Tell me what that was like.
Oh man, I met Marc. I play upright bass as well. So Marc was producing a record with Ryan Bingham, and they needed an upright bass. So I got a phone call. I went to the studio and I played, I forget what Long Way from Georgia was the song. A really beautiful song. And so I guess Marc took notice, and few weeks or months later, I get this call to go back to the recording studio, and it was with other musicians, and it wasn't a band, it wasn't a recording session, it was just musicians getting together to play music.
Mhm.
which is what we do. And it eventually evolved into a touring band. So we're all together, we're kind of playing around, and it ends up that we're all compatible,
Mhm.
and we eventually recorded a record from those multiple sessions, getting together and playing. And then once the record was out, we toured to support it. We did a few tours.
Nice. And
Yeah.
what were the audiences like? I mean, of course, Mark had some commercial success from his time in the Black Crowes, and were people really enthusiastic to see you guys?
Yeah, they were. It's funny. It was almost like being on a Blaster tour. We played a lot of the same venues, and I saw familiar faces at some of the shows. It was very much the same type of crowd.
Excellent. And did it feel kind of liberating being able to do other projects? I mean, of course, you love the Blasters, but you'd been in them for so long, and now you had opportunities to work with these other wonderful people.
Oh, I love playing music, and any opportunity I can, I will play. And as long as I like the music, even if I don't, I think I'll maybe try it, see how it works. But I'm kind of a rootsy player. I think you saw me with Kern Richards, and that's pretty folky music. And then Mark is way more rock and roll, and I love Mark as a singer songwriter. His songs are excellent, and a real joy for me to play. And it's not liberating, that's the wrong word, but it's I love stretching out and doing other things that I wouldn't normally do. And so that's what, playing with Marc Ford, there was a lot of that. And he's such a wonderful guitar player, and he's such a great guy to tour with. He'll rent the van, he'll drive the van, and I remember we were going up to San Francisco to make the recording, The Vulture, and we're driving up the 5, and the 5's kind of boring if you know the 5. And Mark goes, "We can't take this highway to San Francisco. Let's take the 101." And we just turned off the road, and we just started driving to San Francisco on a different route. No, I mean, everyone knows how to get to San Francisco. You don't need a map. And there's really only 2 ways to get there, the 5 or the 101. But I thought it was really great that he decided to take the scenic route. That's Marc Ford.
Yeah, he made it more memorable for you guys.
Yeah.
Excellent. And another, actually, one of your fans on Facebook, I believe, wanted me to ask you, what was it like playing with the Mike Eldred trio?
Oh, I love Mike. He's a good friend. He called me out of the blue years and years ago, asking if I would play at the Doll Hut with him and Jerry Angel on Tuesday night or something. And we did it. And it was so much fun that we haven't stopped. He's moved to Phoenix, so I don't see him nearly as much as I used to, but he's super. Oh man. He's I love Mike because he's got a plan and he knows what he wants to do. And he's got the big picture, and he's a great songwriter, but it goes beyond that. When we were working on Baptist Town, I think Mike really got the whole concept together, start to finish. It tells a story. It was a wonderful experience. We went to Sun Records and recorded Baptist Town, and that was an experience unto itself, playing in Sun Records. I don't know if you know about Sun Records. You must, but to be in the same space that Elvis was in, Carl Perkins was in, Howlin' Wolf was in, to go to the control room and just stand back and think, you could just feel the ghosts of all the people who had been there.
Like all these people who you admired and influenced you.
Oh my God, yeah, so many of them. Sun Records was more than just rockabilly. It was because they were in Memphis, Tennessee. They would record the artists that were in the South of in that region. So they were a very important tool for other labels that were maybe up further north or east or west. they would have their artists. It was easier for them to go to Sun Records and record and then ship the tapes off to the other labels. But so there were so many important American artists that recorded at Sun Records, and so it was great to be there to record Baptist Town. That was a joy. And then we would take little side trips when we weren't recording. We couldn't record in the daytime because they would give tours of Sun Records. So we'd jump in Mike's car, rental car, and we'd go down. We'd just take trips around the Delta and just go to cool places and eat fried chicken and, just do the stuff you're supposed to do when you're in Memphis.
Awesome. Like a true Southern tour, huh?
Yeah, it was great. It was it wasn't like we did have a time limit, but we had the luxury of being able to do things and go back and perfect them. And then I think after I had finished, I flew home. Mike stayed there and he did the vocals and some of the mixing and that sort of thing. So yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Nice. Yeah, I actually grew up in the South, and even though I never visited Sun Records, I can imagine how like the weight of history on you as you entered it, and just the fun. I mean, how cool is it that you got to be in that place where so many important moments in rock and roll happened?
Yeah, and I would look at pictures of Sun Records from that era, and then I'd be standing in the room and I'd look for the same things, like the door and the ceiling tile and the floor, and it was all the same. It was nothing, very little had changed over that amount of time. It was wonderful.
Did you take a picture of yourself, like in any of the spots where you saw Elvis or Carl Perkins, or like what like kind of trying to replicate the shot?
Yes, I did. I don't know if I can find this quick enough. I'll go to my photos, to my full albums, to my favorites. There's a picture of me. I'd always heard that Sam Phillips, who was such an important part of Sun Records, he had a specific spot for the drums. In fact, you had to play his drums in Sun Records because they sounded so good. And he also had a place where he liked the bass. And he spray painted a big X on the floor, and that's where the bass player had to stand. And man, I can't find it.
It's okay. If you want to send it to me afterwards, I can totally use it for my posts when I'm promoting the interview.
Okay. I'm still looking though.
And another thing that I was going to tell you, whenever you're having performances locally, feel free to tell me, because I'd love to announce it on the Blasters Facebook pages. I mean, I think a lot of your fans would love to come and see you, even if it's not, the full band, the Blasters behind you.
Sure. Yeah, if I have something worthwhile, I'll certainly let you know.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, it was so cool seeing you with Kern Richards, and just what a fun spot Bogart's Coffee is,
Yeah. Was that a big commute for you? Don't you live in Los Angeles?
I do. I live in North Hollywood, and I actually drove there with Paul. So, I mean, Paul and I typically make that commute maybe once or twice a month when he's playing there. And I didn't even realize that you were going to be there until we were already on the drive over. He's like, "Yeah, Michaela, I know Kern, blah blah blah, and oh, the bass player today is John Bazz from the Blasters." And I was like, "Yes!" I was so happy when he told me that, and it led to this moment. So it was a trip worth making.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I'm glad you came.
Likewise, I'm so glad you were there, and you're a fun guy to talk to. You're better at this than you think. I feel really honored that you chose my channel for one of your first video interviews in quite a while.
My first and my last. This is it. You've got the exclusive.
Really? You think this is going to be your first and last?
Well, I think it is my first. I've never done this before, but who knows if I'll do another. I just saw that one interview you did with the Jeff Drake, and that was great. That was wonderful. And I knew him back in the day. I didn't know him, but our two bands played together once or twice. So we were in the same space together back in the day. But boy, it was really great to see him interviewed on your show. I really came away with thorough understanding of him. There was a part of him that I didn't know existed. He's a really interesting person.
Yeah, he's lived quite a life, and he's very open and very at peace with himself too, and very optimistic about the future. Just I absolutely loved interviewing him, and I've gotten to see him in person a couple of times since then, and he's actually going to be performing some more Jones's shows. So maybe
Oh,
you can
really?
come out, yeah, like hopefully you can come out
Yeah.
to LA and attend them. He'd probably love to see you.
Yeah. Drop me a line. Let me know. I'm not on Facebook or anything, so I don't know who and when and what and where of, who's playing. So I rely upon my friends to let me know. What was going to say? Oh, you said his book is really good. What book is that?
It's his memoir. It's I forget what the exact title of it is, but he released it a couple of months ago, and I can email you the link to it, and I think he actually already has a couple of the Joneses shows scheduled, so I can text you that too, and then
Yeah, that'd be good to know.
yeah, exactly, and then I can text you a reminder within a week or so because he would genuinely love to see you again. Absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be cool. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll bring he was better friends with Bill Bateman, so maybe I'll go on a double date with Bill to go see the Joneses.
That would be excellent.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can take the credit for it.
There you go.
Yeah. Alrighty, cool. So describe what it was like having Dave come back into the band after having been gone.
Um, it was almost as if he had never left because we really picked up. It's well, it was great because to have David back in the band, he brought with him the energy that he left with. So it was his contribution to the music is hard to describe. It's such a big part of every song. So to have him back was I don't want to mess this up. It was it's always wonderful to collaborate with David. He's such a great person. He's a friend and such a big part of the Blasters. And it's always a joy to play one of his songs with him.
Nice. And what's your relationship? What is the relationship like between the four of you now? I mean, are you all on good terms and in a good place?
Yeah, we're all on great terms. We don't see each other often, but we all stay in touch.
Nice. And I know that I believe Phil has been unwell for quite some time and that you guys haven't really had a chance to perform. But do you think that the four of you will be performing at some point in the future?
I can't answer that because I don't know. I'd like to think that we will, but it's hard to say. Phil needs to get stronger, and it's been a slow process, and he's not ready now. Maybe someday. I hope so.
Okay. So, but he's genuinely doing okay, though. I mean, he's kind of on an upward trajectory.
Yeah, I don't know if you'd call it upward, but he's he's all right. There's nothing killing him. He's just not ready to rock and roll.
Okay. Fair enough. I mean, his health comes first, but if he's ever at a point
True.
where he is ready to rock and roll, his fans would love to see him perform again.
Oh, I know that. I know that. I hear that almost daily.
Well, deservedly. Yeah. Alrighty. So let's I guess we're winding down now, but on a personal note, I wanted to ask, at some point you married and became a father, if I'm correct.
True.
Awesome. What was that like?
Oh golly. So it was right when the Blasters were at the top of their game. And so there was all of that going on in the background, and then to up and get married and raise a family. It seemed crazy. I wasn't sure that it was the right thing to do, but you can't, if you think about, it's like making a record and mixing it. And if you think about it too much, you can ruin it. So it felt right. So my wife and I got married and we had kids, and I wasn't even sure it was good to bring kids into this world because to me, it seemed like the world was pretty messed up back then. It's not gotten any better, but really, who am I to make those decisions? So my wife and I have two boys, 32 and 34 years old. So they're not boys, they're men. That was a while ago.
Yeah. And what's it been like since then as a musician and a father? I mean, do you feel like it's been a wonderful balance having that?
It's been a balance for sure. And I can't tell you why, but it's always worked. So when the blast years when in the past, when we weren't busy, I always had something else to do. And I've had jobs in the interim, and or when the kids really needed me around, I was able to be around because maybe the blasters were slow at the moment. So it's funny. I look back, I don't know how it seems like what I did seems impossible, but in the heat of battle, it just all worked, as they grew up and they did sports, and I would drive them to the baseball field, and my wife would come back from work and pick them up as I left for Hollywood to go play a gig. It was kind of mixed up. And then, get home late at night and then wake up blurry-eyed and make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, throw it in a bag and shove them out the door to go to school, kind of thing. Actually, not shove them out the door. I would drive them to school. I probably made that drive 10,000 times, but when you're young, you can do things like that and not get much sleep, and it all works.
Yeah. Sounds very rewarding.
It was fun.
Awesome. Alrighty. So anything that you would like to add? Any accomplishments that you're really, really proud of?
I mowed the lawn today. But that's kind of a big thing because it's a big backyard, and I hadn't mowed the lawn in a long time, and it was really difficult. So I remember I was looking at my watch going, oh man, I've got to be ready for this interview. I don't know if I'm going to finish the lawn in time, but no, it's other accomplishments. I'm happy to still be playing music. I'm happy to still be learning things about music. And speaking of Mike Eldred, I just played a big corporate thing with him 3 weeks ago, and I had to learn all these goofy songs. In my opinion, they were goofy, but it was rewarding to I won't tell you what the songs were because it's embarrassing, but it was kind of rewarding for me to learn all this music that that I never listened to, that I would never play in a million years, except for I was hired to play the music. So that was a big deal, and I look forward to doing it again with him. So for me, it's all about the people I get to meet in this business, and the blasters are great, work great. That was a fun period for me, and I hope it happens again. I really do. But in the meantime, I'll play with great singer-songwriters like Kern Richards or Peter Fahey, and I can't name them all, the Marc Fords of the world. I really look forward to doing those sorts of things. And, I hope the phone rings tomorrow and it's someone new and some new music that I'll learn.
Excellent. And I'll be here to let everybody know that you're playing and hopefully get some more people out there to see you.
Sure. That'd be cool.
Excellent. Alrighty. Well, is there anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it. Unless you have some other questions.
I think we're good. We kind of covered a lot of your work in the last hour, and thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Okay, you're welcome. Goodbye.
Awesome. Alrighty, cool. So I will try my best to have this edited tonight and then posted tomorrow, and I can send you the link. And like I said, John, whenever you have a performance, I know that most of them are going to be locally. Just let me know, and I can let the people on social media know that you're playing, and hopefully get some more of your fan base out there. Because again, I think that people, I know a lot of people are bothering you about Phil, and that's understandable. but I think people would just love to see you. I mean, I love seeing you, and the Blasters fans just they're very big and
Oh,
dumb.
it's always fun to run into a Blasters fan because they're well, because of it's what I it's my legacy, and theirs too. We have something in common, so I enjoy that quite a bit.
Excellent. And I think I'll put that into the interview. That's a really good quote. Are you okay with me editing that in?
Sure, yeah,
Excellent.
that's fine.
Okay, cool. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And I will hopefully have this posted by tomorrow morning. And I hope to see you around. Just, you're a really cool guy.
Well, thank you. I enjoyed this interview.
So did I, quite a lot.
Right.
All right, cool. So happy Memorial Day, and I'll see you soon, okay?
Yes, I hope so. Thank you for this.
Thank you. All righty.
Bye.
Have a great night.